Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Careers Plus Plus. In the previous session, we spoke about research and academic careers, paths that demand patience, structure, and long-term commitment. Today, we move into another powerful but often misunderstood pathway, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is frequently romanticized and equally frequently misunderstood. This session is not here to convince you to start something. It is here to help you understand entrepreneurship as self-reliance, the ability to create value, survive uncertainty, and take responsibility for outcomes. If this path fits you, today will bring you clarity. If it doesn't, today may save you pain. So today with me is Mr. Bargab Mohandas, co-founder of CareersPlus Plus, to take us through the pathfinding workshop today, entrepreneurship through self-reliance, mindset, reality, and strategic fit. Welcome, Mr. Bargab.
Thank you so much, Miss Jennifer, and great to be back. I believe we all had our reflections over the week, and we all had a very well-deserving break from the regular sessions. And now that we have come across all the basics, then the basics for jobs, basics for higher study, now we are here, the final pathway to discuss, which is entrepreneurship. So today we are focusing on the key aspects relevant to the mindset, the reality, and the strategic fit assessment for entrepreneurship. Let's move on. All right. So let's, as we have been doing with all our other topics, so let's get on with the reality versus myth, aspect. So whenever we talk about entrepreneurship, because of this, so many unicorns and whatnot around, many of them actually started getting busted now. So a lot of time people think entrepreneurship is all about having startups, having funding, and getting absolute independence, so that's why I think Miss Jennifer very rightly used the word romanticized, because yeah, a lot of people see it as a romantic affair, for enjoyment. But in reality, if we see the sustainability aspect of it, so entrepreneurship is actually creating a value where none existed before, solving real problems, and then taking responsibility for the outcome. Without that, anything else can be some lucky venture, but it won't be very, very sustaining. I think I'm again going back all the way to our first session where we had a discussion where we say that there is, while explaining what Careers Plus is, that there is no shortcut to success. If we just get success, without putting much effort, we are simply lucky. That's it. So that's why entrepreneurship, it has to start as a mindset even before we convert it to a business. So as long as we are having the mindset of creating value out of everything, when we focus on solving real problems, and then when we have a mindset of taking responsibility of what we do, yeah, we believe that we are on the right path if we think entrepreneurship is the way to go. Now, yes, why entrepreneurship is often romanticized, right? Well, the common narratives whenever people try to promote entrepreneurship, right? So the common narratives that will go that, oh, you should become an entrepreneur because you have to be your own boss. I mean, whether people understand that or not, that's a different thing altogether. But people like to call it like be your own boss, or entrepreneurship provides us unlimited freedom. It is a road towards quick success. It will give financial independence. Yes, all these things are correct. It's not that they're not right. They are right, but are they the real only reality associated with entrepreneurship? There are certain aspects that's associated with entrepreneurship once someone attains success in terms of having a sustaining entrepreneurial activity. Because now I believe with the regular regular evidence where we see the so-called startup founders are being chased here and there due to their mismanagement of funds or things like having improper growth plan and so on and so forth. So we come across quite a few such cases where a so-called unicorn is now facing such challenges in terms of like creating some false values to raise funds, and then most of the founders maybe just laughing all the way to the banks and retire, while the company that they founded after being an unicorn eventually going down different path, right? So that's why if we all these narratives that we talk about being your own boss and so on and so forth, they are real. But having said that, for for the purpose, for like if we have to have them like a sustaining for the long term, so we have to also focus on certain reality. So those realities are what? The very, very evident ones are when we go the entrepreneurial way, first thing, our sense of responsibility and the responsibility itself should increase. Uncertainty is definitely there. It's a constant part of entrepreneurship. At least when we start, there will be a lot of uncertainty. And this so-called freedom that we keep on telling all the time, it only comes after a good amount of endurance. So these three realities are very, very evident. And a lot of time, many of the people who really want to start entrepreneurial activities, they quit the moment they find the hardship, you know. And sometime, like many people would quit entrepreneurial initiatives not simply due to lack of ideas, but then when they meet the real challenges, the real practical challenges, commercial challenges, so then they at that point in time they decide to give up, right? So these are also equally relevant as all the fancy things are. So that's why we need to be aware of all the reality associated with that, associated with entrepreneurship, and then basically work towards elevating whatever are the concerns and like focusing on the strong points and negating the weak points so that eventually we can sustain, we can endure the entire process, and then we can actually have these narratives realized in real terms, like be our own boss, unlimited freedom, quick success may or may not happen depending on how lucky we are, and of course financial independence. So that's why, like a good disclaimer I like to put for entrepreneurship is the like romance, it attracts people, but then the reality retains a few, because the moment people get attracted, and then very easily they can think, oh, it's always better to go back to the job that we were doing. At least over there we get paid all the time, right? And hardship filters the most, because some people, they might even get retained for a while, but when a hardship situation comes, because there is a difference between the reality of the genuine reality and the hardship. So genuine reality is what? So suppose we set up a business, but the revenue generation is not happening the way it was anticipated. So that itself, for some people, might be enough to give up, But there might be some who might still go ahead, give it a shot, and try to move forward. But then, what is hardship? Some catastrophic things happened to them, which can be absolutely detrimental, life threatening, or career threatening, or something. And at that point in time, many might give up and then again decide to go back to the step of safety. So that's why, from my own experience, I always like to put this disclaimer when it comes to entrepreneurship. Romance attracts the people, reality retains a few, and the hardship filters the most. Now, just to clear another myth, a lot of time people try to relate entrepreneurship with self-employment. Self-employment is a part of entrepreneurship, but it essentially is not entrepreneurship, right? So what is self-employment? Self-employment is that we sell our time and skill to earn money. But it can be anything, right? Thing is that, suppose we simply have one skill. That skill can be, for example, we can cook good food, so we make food and we sell. It's more of like a self-employment category. But if we want to call it an entrepreneurship, then what it should be, so that skill is put into a process that can be sort of like enhanced multiple times, that can give employment or like livelihood to a strata of people. It can serve the society and the people associated with it, like things like that, and then it becomes a value creating system, which we call is entrepreneurship. So self-employment is something like an individual selling their time and skill and earn money rather than doing a 9 to 5 job and get paid salary. Whereas entrepreneurship is creating a value-based system, right? So both are valid and good, and they're not the same. In fact, entrepreneurship, I would say, is a broader term, and definitely self-employment is part of entrepreneurship. We can put it that way. But if we take both of them to be same, then it can simply be frustrating, because if someone wants to be an entrepreneur and not, but seeing someone else's self-employment skill being more successful and not being, and the person gets frustrated in the process, so it is a sheer case of confusion. So let's be very clear that entrepreneurship is a process of creating values. Now, as we have been doing with all the other segments, depending on our individual nature, so so who are the individuals whom entrepreneurship fits the base, right? So coming to the positive one, like people who has a natural tendency to tolerate uncertainty, who can learn really fast from the failure. I think we have been speaking about it quite a few times before, that failures happen in life, but we need to really, learn from them and move on. Then the people who likes to take responsibility, without shifting blames to others. And of course, the people who has the tendency, the moment some problem coming their way, rather than running away from the problem, the people who immediately focus on getting solutions for them, people like that are fit to be entrepreneurs. Definitely, if someone is really, someone wants to have absolute clarity in terms of the safety part of it, that means everything has to be predictable, the results should come out exactly the way they're foreseeing, or people who would like to avoid risk, or people who would need very fast validation, well, they may not be absolutely fit for entrepreneurship, because so like searching such level of such cushions of comfort is not always guaranteed in entrepreneurship, and that can create some unnecessary stress. All right. So that's why, like we had been talking about temperament over and again in different sessions. So here also the temperament matters quite a bit. So the courage matters, definitely the courage matters in terms of starting entrepreneurship, but the temperament matters more. Now, some of the real honest risks that we have to have to have, like, we cannot avoid them if we really want to be successful entrepreneurs, or even entrepreneur, forget about being successful. So if we want to be entrepreneurs in real sense, so we have to be prepared to have these common challenges. First, instability in income, you know. uh, so that is very natural, that when we start something new, we cannot be absolutely clear about what's coming our way, you know. So that income instability is one of the very basic challenges. Long working hours, because as an entrepreneur, we own our own, like, we literally own the destiny in a way, right? What we are creating. So the thing is that we simply have to devote hours of blood and sweat to make things happen. So simply, if we want to be entrepreneur and expect 9 to 5 kind of comfort, so I think that's very unlikely to result in grand success. But then again, I mean, luck is always a good factor in all this. But the thing is that, in addition to the income instability, long working hours definitely would be one of the aspect that people have to be able to adhere. Delayed rewards, we cannot expect rewards coming right away. Okay, if our luck is good, sometime the opportunity comes at the right time, we might get rewards right away, but a lot of time we have to wait, and this remains a normal phenomena throughout the journey in an entrepreneur's life. So then sometime loneliness in decision making. So this doesn't mean that there is no one to help the decision making. What does it mean? An entrepreneur always an entrepreneur is always made by their decisions, right? Made or broken by their decisions. But if an entrepreneur starts depending on 15 people around them to make decisions, then automatically it may not go forward the way it should, right? So when we use the word loneliness in decision making, means there will be times where the entrepreneur has a conviction, has a confidence on something, and there's a high probability that everyone else whom he or she is communicating might give different opinions. Someone might support it 100%, someone might support with comments, someone might completely reject it. So that's why we have to have that conviction that, okay, even though we are lonely in that making the decision, but if we are convinced that this decision is the one that is serving the purpose of this entrepreneurial journey, it has to be taken. And one of the challenges, it's again related to the one just before, emotional drain from repeated self-doubt. Because a lot of time it might happen that entrepreneur might be cautioned by the people around them, but still, they decided to take the decision, and it just might happen that more than once the decision turned out to be wrong. So if that happens, there is a probability of some emotional drain out, because if the success, like it lets like leaves leaves that person repeatedly. So that's why these are the key challenges that one has to face, an entrepreneur has to face at some point in time. So that's why, like, most of the times, even before it goes to taste the intelligence of an entrepreneur, it will taste his or her emotional resilience. So we have to be quite ready for that. Okay? So this is why, you see, I mean, now if we go back to the original sessions of Careers Plus Plus, when we talked about how to shape up our mind. So if we do those bits correctly, when we come across challenges like this during our entrepreneurial journey, that definitely will help us many folds. Now, okay, so we just talked about, right, that how failure can trigger some sort of emotional disbalance and whatnot. So let's understand what is failure. Let's redefine what is failure from an entrepreneurship perspective. So actually, in entrepreneurship, failure is not some inadequacy, or it's not some final judgment. if we are inadequate, but we understood we are inadequate in what, and then we can plan better, then definitely it's not a failure, because next time, because it's about, multiple iterations of work, of activities to make it eventually happy. Even if we see the large, successful entrepreneurial ventures, right? Not all of them are successful. Some of them work really well. Just for example, let's put it this way. Suppose we take a brand of a car. Let's say Toyota. So Toyota has a large range of different cars, right? Are each of the model are equally successful? No. Some of them, they're very much successful, but some of them are not. Even some models, for example, like say, okay, I'm just giving it a hypothetical example. Let's not take it literally. Suppose Camry. So Camry, so 1998 to 2002, they had one model. 2002 to 2006, they had one other model, and each of them were not equally successful. So you see, that's why. Does that mean that they're inadequate, in its entirety? No. There might be certain inadequacy in one model, so automatically they would fulfill those inadequacies in the next one so that they succeed. So this is one thing. That is why personal inadequacies are not a failure. And similarly, the final judgment on something is also not a failure. Because the thing is that, yes, we failed this time, that's fine. We have learned our lesson, so we move on. So that's why what is failure in entrepreneurship is, number one, not to get the right feedback. So when we fail on the common man's term, and if we don't get the feedback from that, that means how we improve, that is failure. Market response, that is also failure. Suppose when we get on with a product to the market and we failed. So when we failed, we need to get the pulse of the market, right? We need to understand, why did the market not like our product? Why it failed? So if we cannot get that response well understood, that is failure. And what is the final failure? That if you see that what I've been talking all this while, it's all about learning proactivity. So if we don't get the learning signals from everything that we do in entrepreneurship, that is failure. So that's why, to sum it up all together, in entrepreneurship, let's not put the tangible outcomes to be something to justify success or failures. If we cannot learn and survive, that is actually, that is actually a bigger failure. So that's why, like as we sum it up at the bottom, those who learn, they survive. Those who deny, they keep on repeating the mistakes, which is the failure. So I think we need to be very clear about this. So that's why, like when some people say that, oh, I put up a venture and I lost some money, it's what a big failure it is. But in reality, is that a failure? It is not. Until they don't get the feedback, they don't get the market response, and they don't get the learning signal from that tangible, mistake. So now, okay, we just say that entrepreneurship is not simply being self-employed. So this is what we're adding now. What are the probable, forms of entrepreneurship? First and foremost, definitely startups, as we all know, the hot topic. But let's not go with the trend of just creating some startup on the paper and then focus on getting some VC to fund it, which has been the trend. And then many of them then create their own shell companies to siphon money out and disappear after a while. So but a startup is always a fundamental phase of entrepreneurship. And every single conglomerate we have today, they all started being startups. So definitely entrepreneurship can be startups, but even family and ancestral businesses can also be entrepreneurship. A lot of times, certain family businesses, they run for generations in one pattern, but then again, if it if it is amended positively to create a value, what we call at the very beginning, entrepreneurship is all about creating values, right? So even family and ancestral businesses can be entrepreneurial ventures. It doesn't have to be like a startup. Then freelance systems, even freelance systems can also be like this one we already discussed, but that self-employed and entrepreneurial activities comparison. Then social enterprises and side ventures, they're also, because every single aspect that creates this sense of self-reliance and adding value to the overall societal balance can be entrepreneurship. So that's why, as we put it here, entrepreneurship adapts to the context. Now, of course, the timing matters then in terms of that when we become entrepreneur, because certain people, they are born entrepreneurs from day one. I think they are born like that, so they have it. But then again, if we really want to have absolute clarity, we need to ask ourselves a few questions, right? So, like we have been talking of having absolute clarity of our objectives. So, this is where we are growing here. So, when we talk about entrepreneurship, so we just need to ask these questions to ourselves first, that do we really have a problem worth solving that will create an entrepreneurial venture? So that's the first question that we need to have. Once we have the answer on that particular problem, then we have to ask ourselves that do we have the skills or insight to be influential for that particular topic, right? And once we have the answers for both of them, then we should have some clarity in terms of the financial requirements for the same. So then the third thing that, okay, now that we are going into this direction, there will be some time that will come for some financial uncertainty. So do we have the skills or backups or savings to survive during that phase? So that's why it's all about having understanding and preparedness to get into the entrepreneurship in a bit more structured way. So that's why, as we sum it up at the end of this slide, not all good entrepreneurs start early. Some of them, they start prepared. So if we start prepared, then the probability of getting success in it is far higher. Now, of course, like, even though entrepreneurship is not only about making a lot of money, but definitely that is one of the very, very, very important aspect of it, right? So that's why money and entrepreneurship always has its hand-in-hand relationship. So, three key points that one really need to focus on entrepreneurship is all about cash flow, survival plan, and the balance between the control and growth. So let me go, one by one. So when we talk about cash flow discipline, so for an entrepreneurial activity to remain self-sustaining, it is very essential to assure the absolute discipline in terms of the cash flow. So what is cash flow? Money earned against money spent, right? And when I'm talking money earned, this money earned is about preferably by revenue from the sales, because a lot of time nowadays focuses on like going towards the startups and with some nice proposal raise funds from the venture capitalists, right? Well, that also helps cash flow, but will it help in the longer run? So that's why if we can put the focus on earning by revenue from sales and let that earning keep look like keep it in a manner that it looks after all the expense requirements, that's the most ideal scenario. If not, then also we have to have a hybrid solution in between. But in no case, like one thing is of paramount importance, that the venture has to be eventually highly profitable. Otherwise, like only funds coming through grants or venture capitals and so on and so forth, it is not long sustaining, right? That's number one. Number two, in entrepreneurship, we have to have absolute survival goals depending on different phases. So before we scale things up significantly, so we just need to make sure that we have already touched base upon all our basic survival needs. And then only if it has been sort of taken into account, then proceed towards scaling it up. And definitely, like before we push towards the next growth pattern, we need to make sure that everything in the organization, in the venture, is absolutely under control. Then only, because sometimes if we are too accelerated growth focused, while we like put the necessities for basic controlling measures at the back seat, so the outcome can really come very, very disastrous. So that's why we just have to be very focused on these three basic principles. So try and generate enough revenue that the revenue can look after the cash flow. Then assurance of all survival needs in every stage of the growth before we scale up to the next level. And for the overall growth plan, we need to make sure that we have the precise controlling mechanisms in place. Okay, so that's why like revenue validates the ideas, funding only amplifies them. I mean, it precisely tells what I said at the very beginning, that if we focus only on raising funds but not earning revenue from our sales, it can give some short-term cash flow respite, but going forward, it can be quite painful. Well, now this is just a reflection. I would say that in spite of all the risks or all the uncertainty associated, but people still choose this path, right? So why? So I believe like one is the ownership of direction, second is creative freedom, third is impact creation, and fourth, accelerated personal growth. So a lot of time, if people can get their basics right and create a parallel pathway, so due to the four reasons, and with proper planning and clarity on the objective, people still goes ahead and choose this path of entrepreneurship. So in the hindsight, what I try to say, that if someone has chosen entrepreneurship with these 4 points in mind, and all the aspects related to clarity in mind and clarity on the objective, so uh, they should be least bothered about all the hassles that might come their way. So a lot of time, some individual who were not initially, how to say, made for entrepreneurship, but during the course in time with proper grooming, which of course at Careers Plus Plus we are going to support anyway, they can transform themselves to be entrepreneurs. So that possibility is always also there, that someone who may not be an entrepreneur today, but with proper self grooming can transform himself or herself to be one. But having said that, let's focus on some of the aspects that actually we can refer as due diligence itself, that we should do before we can get on board with a full throttle to become entrepreneurs. So let's answer ourselves like 5 basic points. Each of them has more than one question. First, the real reason. why we want to be entrepreneur. So is it because we really want to attain an objective by solving a problem, or is it simply like we're escaping something? Escaping something means what? Like, oh, we are not happy with this boss at my workplace, so I better start doing something on my own so that I don't have to, you know, follow a boss. Or I'm not fulfilling my financial requirements with the salary, so let's do something. So that's why the first question: what is the real reason? Is the reason is to create value, or is the reason is just escape something which with which I'm not happy? Okay. Second thing, is it a curiosity, a pressure, or conviction? So when we say curiosity, it's just like something like that. Okay, I've been working well in this field as a professional employee, but so and so from my class who used to be a backbencher, but decided to go in his own way of doing business and now so successful. So maybe I also should try something out. That's curiosity. A lot of people do. Sometimes pressure is something like, you know, that we come from a family where family business is run through generation, but we really want to go a different path, but we had been pressurized. No, 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 no. You know, while you were like earning money through a paycheck from someone else, why don't you come back and do this business run by the family? You know, or is it the conviction that, yes, I know that this is what I want to do, this is what will make me successful, this is what will take me to my deserved deserved destination. So we need to ask this question, that what is the real reason? Okay. Now, second thing, like local reality. So local reality means, suppose we have already cleared in our mind that this is what we are going to do, but we have to be realistic too. So when I use the word local reality, means we should know that the thing that we are going to do now, what is its reality locally? Meaning, has anyone else done this? Is anyone else doing it? Right? We need to have absolute clarity. And is there real demand of that thing in this particular place? Like, as I think some of our team members remember, that we were having a discussion the other day in my office about starting some new ventures within AIT campus, right? So I had a question that, okay, I mean, do we know the exact traffic? When I use the word traffic, means, okay, what kind of transaction we are talking about on a daily basis? So that's the same thing. In our local reality, I mean, do we know exactly what is going to be the size? You know? So that's why. This is what the local reality is. Then the next is global reality. So suppose local reality we can meet, but we really want to have bigger aspects. So what is the global reality? So do we really know how is it happening all across, right? Whether the trends, how the trends are they going bigger? Like, for example, if suppose someone comes and tells they want to get into the business of renewable energy, say 12, 13 years back, and suppose someone comes today and say that I want to go it now, right? So there are two different things, right? 12, 13 years back, it was something, it was a new venture just on its ascending path. Now it has already reached very much like its zenith. So things like that, you know. So we need to have absolute clarity that how the global pattern of that particular initiative and that pattern, that trend, whether it supports my new vision or it's threatening. We have to have that clarity. Then, of course, the very basic one, the existing competition. And when we talk about the existing competition, just two things: enlist who's going to be our competitor. Second, why do customers choose them? And then three, of course, it was not there, I'm just adding, how, you know, like how they have made it this far, right? Like, why do customers choose them? It can be one thing, but then how they have maintained themselves to meet the customer's requirement on a regular basis, right? Once we have that clarity, then comes the last one, our own personal age. That now that we know that, okay, this is our real reason, this is the local reality of this venture, this is the global reality of this venture. Currently, we have these competitions and they're so successful because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now the last one, why I'm going to be better than them. What is my USP? What is my ultimate selling point? Because we have to sustain that competition and strive, right? So that completes the basic due diligence that one should do before they become entrepreneur, right? So we really need to see that, okay, I mean, how my solution is different to the others available, and the systems are ever evolving, right? So they have reached some status doesn't mean that they will stop. They will also keep on evolving. Just think of it. One of the largest selling luxury product, iPhone, they're so successful. They're sold like that, but they even have a newer version at least every 6 months. They're evolving. So that's why when we are doing something, and so we really need to see that, okay, I mean, first of all, how we put ourselves as better than the competition around, and then how we sustain it. What will sustain when the competition will be intensified? So we need to have these 5 aspects as basic requirements if we want to be entrepreneurs really very sincerely. Let's be very clear, like someone is doing something and then we just step in simply because, okay, we are maybe good at some of the aspects of that. That makes us an aid to an entrepreneurial venture, not entrepreneurs. So if we really want to be entrepreneurs, we really have to have this level of broad vision. All right? So that's why, like, like entrepreneurship without due diligence is, it's not courage. It's more of an avoidable risk. But if we go through proper due diligence, then yes, we actually can make amends. And this is why I go back to the previous slide now, that where we mentioned entrepreneurship is transformative. So many of us are now having our working careers, right? But we also want to be entrepreneurs. So this is the point I would like to highlight, that if we are having our day-to-day 9 to 5 job, right? But we have some entrepreneurial aspirations in our mind, let's try to focus on these 5 points. And then we see, how we strive and how we move forward. All right? Okay. Now the reflections. So with all this background, there are 4 reflections. What attracts us to entrepreneurship? What scares us the most? What problem do we genuinely care about? Meaning, what we really want to do as an entrepreneur, as our own venture, right? And what lifestyle trade-offs am I willing to accept? Meaning that entrepreneurial activities, they don't come in platter, right? We have to give our everything. So which part of our lives, because suppose our existing lifestyle is we simply work 9 to 5, weekends, we don't even check office emails. So basically if someone tells that I send you an email on Saturday at 2 p.m. and we take it as a badge of honor when we answer, oh, it's a Saturday, so I will check only on Monday, right? So are we ready to get rid of some of those, if not all? I can tell for myself personally, for last, I would say, 18 years, it doesn't take me more than 5 minutes to read an email when it comes in. As long as I'm not in a, not on a flight or I'm not sleeping. Okay? So the thing is that good, bad, ugly, whatever I have achieved, but one thing I've been following, like, anything that comes our way, have to do it full conviction. Entrepreneurship is not just some ideas that suddenly come, maybe let's do it. We need to really work very hard for that. So that's what it is. The last one, what lifestyle trade-offs we have to ask ourselves, and then we exactly know, right? Like I think there's a very beautiful quote, I cannot recollect who, I think it was former Indian President APJ Abdul Kalam. He was also a very renowned scientist, who mentioned that dream is not something that we watch while we are asleep. Dream is something that keeps us awake. And I fully understand what does it mean, because I have come across that thing almost every, if not every week, at least every month in my life for last nearly 20 years. There has been reason that kept me awake. So the good ones. There are bad things also. When there are bad things, I sleep more than usual. But whenever good things happen around, so I keep awake. So this is why I think we need to have clarity on these aspects. We reflect ourselves on this. Yeah. Now, okay. So how Careers Plus can help? Certainly, like I think we already have come across. So someone has interest in becoming entrepreneur, but then has uncertainty. So definitely we can, have these aspects as our in our personal customized sessions to get more clarity. Next aspect is like someone might be having ideas, clear ideas, but don't know how to structure it to make it proper entrepreneurial venture. Definitely, we can work around together so that we can convert the ideas into some value propositions, and assuring that all the probable avoidable mistakes can be nullified. Then, if there is a fear of failure, okay, definitely. I mean, we already have reframed what is failure. So we Careers Plus would definitely be happy to support on that aspect. What's next? Concerned about money or stability. So definitely the survival strategies Careers Plus can help. And in fact, um, like if the entrepreneurship like really has that idea really has some value, so some of our partnering companies might be willing to join in that startup venture from day one itself. So obviously, we need to talk more so that we have clarity, and then we can figure out ways to help each other. And last but not the least, that if there is a pressure to be entrepreneurial because it looks very very fancy, well, I mean over there also we can help in terms of how to say, in terms of getting a better understanding of it, so that the individual can take like conscious decisions rather than following some emotional patterns. All right. So that's pretty much for today. So from the stock keeping units that we are in the process of developing and we develop together, the finalized products during our second semester relevant to today's session are the simplified business model canvas, startup readiness self-test for any aspiring entrepreneurs, and impact career mapping tool. So with that much, I conclude the presentation session for today. So we can move on towards the discussion and Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bargab. May I invite Professor Dieter Trau if you have anything to add to the presentation, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, so I think it was quite comprehensive. And what we could maybe consider backup in the future is if there are some members, our students from Career Plus, if they have an idea, maybe we can organize some pitch session or something like this.
Yes,
in the
yes,
future.
definitely. Like I
When
said, right? Even our
they can
supporting
present
companies
it.
can, yeah. So in fact, if the the initiative has very good prospects, right? So definitely we can even help on the fundraising part of it too. So that's definitely there. Yeah, that's definitely
Yes,
there.
what I often have seen at the Entrepreneurship Center, so people they have an idea, it's also a good idea, but it's too diffuse. They're not exactly, have structured this, as you mentioned also
Yeah,
in one
that's
of
very
the
important.
slides.
Yep.
And that point is very, very important. And I think this point, for sure, we can support.
Correct, correct.
From a diffuse idea to a very structured plan.
Correct, 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 correct. In fact, our SKU will definitely help to make it like proper, ready to submit pitching documents as well, right? And
Yeah,
and
so
maybe that pitching might happen to one of my companies itself. So where we might have some inner growth itself. So I think we can definitely work together. Yeah.
yes. So the business canvas, which is one of the tools from today, so that's very important
Yeah.
to get from this diffuse idea to a
Yes.
very
True.
clear structure.
True. 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 Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor Dieter, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask the question.
Do we have anything internally amongst ourselves?
Actually, I have a
Yeah,
question,
please.
Mr.
Yes.
Bergab. Is it okay to try and step back later on if, I think that it's not working?
Yes, absolutely. Why not? If we don't try, we don't know. Right? Actually, like we mentioned, right? It may happen. See, trying and stepping back is always okay, right? But we talk about entrepreneurial activities being transformative, right? So it's very natural when someone wants to be an entrepreneur and the person may not be ready yet. But during that process, so see the thing is that you see, at Careers Plus Plus, we don't want people to start realize, oh, I'm not an entrepreneurial material, so I give up. But that giving up part will create some negative energy. That will create some unnecessary stress, right? So what we really want to achieve out here, because if that person really want to try means what? That person really wants to be an entrepreneur. But it may be very natural that the person is not ready yet. No problem. We make that person ready. We transform that person to be an entrepreneur, and then we can provide the entire support infrastructure all the way, if it really makes sense, the funding part of it, right? So yeah, I mean, let's try. I really would like as many of us possible come and try. I mean, we fail together, and then we again jump up and move forward. Yeah.
Can you share briefly your personal entrepreneur journey?
It's still going on. It's just started, I would say. So, see, the thing is that I perhaps, I'm just trying to put the very candid version of it, right? So, initial maybe 7-8 years of my career, I hardly realized what I was doing, but I was just working. Whatever I was working on, I was working with my best possible ability. Wherever that was not enough, I improved myself. And that's how the whole journey went on, to the extent that I started seeing all these things that was put on the slide as entrepreneurial qualities, right? So at some point in time, I just had to decide between the comfort in life or following my own conviction, right? So I decided to follow my own conviction and become an entrepreneur. And of course, there had been failures, some success. It's back and forth, all the way going to certain, certain aspects which I really, wish people don't have to get along, which actually made me sitting in a court for 36 hours last week. Out of those 36 hours, more than 10 hours, I was sitting on on a witness box. So yes, but these are all good learning lessons that makes us improved, right? So what I would say that what I learned from all this, I just put it across in the slides today. Having said that, I would just conclude in one line that if we are entrepreneurs, we will get the signal, And what is the signal? we really value something and want to make that thing a reality. Today, I know very well that what I value the most, and Careers Plus Plus is a creation out of that thought process. Because the thing is that during my entire growth process, I literally sort of like self-taught. I just grew on my own, and that's why I made my own share of mistakes. I feel if those mistakes were not made, a big amount of negativity could have been out of my life, and things would have been far more better. So that's what we want to achieve also through Careers Plus Plus. That, you know, preventing the budding professionals, be it in job, be it in higher academics, and definitely in entrepreneurship. Because if people go during their job career path or higher academia, as we discussed last time, the chances of such risks are very minimal. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, we are bound to meet a tremendous amount of and we have to have a tremendous amount of negativity at times, and we have to have resilience. So keeping all this thing in mind, we got this Careers Plus Plus initiated, and we strongly believe this we can use in terms of cutting down the negativities, and create more and more influential entrepreneurs. Because when the like people with good mindset are in the position of I won't say power, but position of influence, where they can bring changes to the society. That's what is we would like to achieve out here at Careers Plus Plus. Yeah, that's how I would sum it up. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your answer, Mr. Burkap. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now.
You don't got anything today? Tungish, you got something?
Okay, good. We have a question from Tungish.
Yes, okay. Thank you for the session. So, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we often come across things like stress, anxiety, or burnouts when we work through it. So, I just want to, it's not a question, sir, it's a thing to discuss. I think we discussed this earlier also. So, I want to quote Mr. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. So, he mentioned about stress, that stress doesn't come from hard work. Stress primarily comes from not taking action over something that you can have certain control over. So I just want to discuss this. How well do you agree with this statement? Or if
True.
you'd like to expand on this, sir.
Very true. See, the thing is that hard work doesn't give you any stress. In fact, it's a stress buster. Hard work with fulfillment, with fulfillment in results, it gives maybe what he said. I can just simply give you with one relatable example. I think you have worked with me well enough to realize that sometime you get a line from me at 11 in the night on something, and then maybe around 3 in the morning you already got the answer from me before you prepare for your answer, right? A lot of time it happens, right? Like, oh, please prepare this one, maybe we'll discuss tomorrow. But then you will see me finishing it and send it to you. Okay, I have done it by and large, please fine tune it. That answers this question. That means I would prefer to finish the job, in the process sleep only 2-3 hours, rather than having the headache, though it's not yet been done. That creates the stress. Oh, something has to be delivered by tomorrow, it's not yet been done. That creates the stress. Not like, oh, I have to work for, I slept only 3 hours to finish it. If that, so we have to judge which part creates the stress. For me, that I slept only 3 hours, and rather than, because I knew it, I mean, with all due respect, this is something very new to you too. The thing, I think you know which one I'm talking about. So I realized that, like, I slept at 11, dropping that line to you. At 2 in the morning, I woke up. And I felt that, okay, I think my brain is working good enough to do that now. And definitely if I do that, owing to my knowledge and experience on the thing, I can do it much faster. And definitely then we have far more time to make it presentable, right? So yeah, that I think you got your answer, right? So that's why if I have if I had to complain that, oh, I slept only 3 hours to do this, then I'm not an entrepreneur. But I prefer to sleep less and get the job done. Because if the job is not finished, that creates the stress. Maybe I might have continued sleeping, but the sleep quality would have been very bad. So that's how it works. Yep. Yep. Anyone from our online friends?
I actually have a couple of questions, and I will share them in the chat as well.
No, please come up. I think you frame your questions very well. I really like the way you ask. So please go ahead, ask here.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So for the first question is that in the light of multiple failures, what is an entrepreneur doing to finally reach that breakthrough? And what are they perceiving differently as well? And this is like after the person has taken the necessary prior steps.
Well, I mean, I think partly we discussed that during the slide. So the most important part is clarity, how much we can learn, right? So every time a failure occurs, so definitely it has a reason, right? Why it failed. So we need to do that self-introspection and some retrospections perhaps to understand that what caused that failure and find solutions around it. So sometimes we find the solutions very fast and we can rectify ourselves real fast. Sometimes I think it takes 2-3 iterations and it takes, but at the end of it, like if we can really do a proper introspection and retrospection, that helps. That's how I would put it. So depending on how well we introspect and retrospect, that decides how quickly we can get out of that situation. Could I answer your question? I think Professor Dieter, if you want to add from this, please go ahead.
So we are at your question A, right? Now I'm looking at the chat.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. But I think it was probably answered right. And
no, I was just telling
saying,
that if you want to add anything on the question A, Professor, like from what I said already.
So you have many questions here. Should we move on to the others? Actually, there are many.
Okay, Modupe, maybe you can go ahead with your next questions. Then okay, please go ahead. Yeah.
Someone has put in the work and time to build something and release that product, but it's not working in the market. So when is it time to let go and cut their losses to ensure that the loss is minimal?
Well, it again goes back to the same introspection thing, right? So we already discussed about this thing also, that we have to learn the market. We have to have the pulse of the market, that what is the demand of the thing, right? So whatever is our initiative, we should make sure, for example, suppose we are in a desert and we want to open a water extraction and distilling plant. So that might just not work, right? Because it's about a facility. But okay, let's put it this way: if we are sitting on a place where we have abundance of some natural natural resources, and we just try to go and tell them that we are importing that same natural resource from somewhere else and sell to them. So we are not fooling them, we are fooling ourselves, right? So the thing is that we need to have the market pulses even before we start. So how the market will react. So that's why if you see in that penultimate slide, we talked about this, that to understand the potential of the initiative both locally as well as globally, and then we assess what are the competitions and how we go around them. So that's why it's not about how many times we should fail and then give up. No, we should actually realize that are we following the right thing? So once we fail, and if we feel that we are chasing the wrong one, we should give up immediately, not do more iterations. Yeah. But ideally, okay, by rule of thumb, maybe if we don't succeed after 2 or 3 iterations, we better give up. Something is terribly wrong with that. Do you agree, Professor Dieter, on this one?
Yes.
All right.
So maybe I can continue with the next question.
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
You want to read it or should I read it? Maybe you can read it.
Oh, all right. So, what is the best line between innovation and actual feasibility, and what does this involve? And when I talk about innovation, I sort of mean like the idea, and this sometimes would include like inspiration and would sometimes be like a bit of like a fantasy. So, between innovation and actual feasibility.
Yeah. So, if we talk about innovation, we usually mean something that is enabling, So, of course, it can relate to many things. It can relate to a machine, it can relate to a process, to a business model, things like this. But also, if we say it in pattern language, it must have some enabling steps. So something very clear that's based on maybe, science, physics, or things like this. But a fantasy can be anything, right? So a fantasy is not necessarily enabling, but may become later. And innovation, Jules Verne, for example, right? He created a lot of fantastic ideas, but at this time they were impossible to basically realize. They were not yet an innovation. They were just some ideas and some fantasies. So, from my perspective, an innovation has a very clear enabling way to bring it into practice.
Sorry, Professor Dieter, maybe would you maybe just take a couple of minutes to explain maybe a living example is your product, right? The one that that Nenet got it validated. Maybe you can explain a bit to our audience about that tool that one can put across their body and to make the predictions. That's a classic example of innovation in entrepreneurship, right? Maybe if you can spare a couple of words on that one to our team.
Oh, you mean from one of my companies?
Yeah, from your company. Yeah, why not? I mean, that's a living example, right? So what kind of innovative solutions and that's a real innovation. That's not a fantasy, but it might sound like one, right? So maybe if you can elaborate this to all of us, so it would be great.
Yeah. So basically the inspiration would be to predict the birth of a baby, but that's just a fantasy. It's just what you want to achieve. But the innovation behind is a technology solution, which based on physics and the physiology of the human body, and to sense those physiology. Yeah. So that's the difference between the real innovation, which becomes a real product, and the early part, which is idea or some fantasy. But maybe we can put it so. What I believe you asked this question, maybe you have something, right? Something concrete those questions relate to, right?
No, I think what she's trying to ask that sometimes a lot of things people disregard, calling it way ahead of its time. But see, the thing is that nothing is way ahead of their time if they put an impact, right? So what Professor Dieter mentioned, it's an achievement he himself achieved with his team, which of course will come to the light of the real commercial market very soon. So this basically that solution can basically predict things well ahead in time that how it will occur. So if say 10 years back someone will tell that we put a device across a woman's body and it will tell exactly when the lady is going to deliver a baby, people would think it's way ahead of the time. But with right effort and proper process, it's been achieved now. So that's why you see. So the thing is that like any idea that can bring a positive change can never be way ahead of time, because if it can be validated, well, only thing that we have to see is scalability. Scalability comes from what? The scalability comes from the investment required. So that means, is it commercially viable? So any solution, when people say it's way ahead of its time, meaning what? It's still not viable to a common person, right? So automatically at some point in time, so we just have to see that whenever we think of a solution, we just have to see that how fast it can be adopted by anyone. I mean, I can tell it from a living example, the solar panels. Solar panels, when they first came in Thailand, like the government had to give it a subsidy, like an adder of 8.5 baht on the top of the electricity price. And today we are dealing with like installing solar rooftops and selling electricity at a price, say 40-50% cheaper than what government supplies electricity. So that's why when it needed an adder of 8.5 baht, at that point in time it was okay, a way ahead of time of a thing, but with proper practical efforts by the people, it has made available to everyone. So the thing is that things should not be discarded as way ahead of time. If something is perceived to be way ahead of time, we just have to see that what are its merits and what are the practical ways to make it commercially viable so that everyone can use it.
Yeah, so the challenge is often to communicate the value of something, of a product that is way ahead of its time, because you cannot compare it with something that exists. So it's much easier to communicate a product that already exists in some way, and you may have an improvement. It's
Correct.
easy to communicate, but something that does not exist at all. So the challenge is really also to communicate
the product has
the
to
real
exist.
value.
The product has to exist, because if the product doesn't exist, it cannot be an entrepreneurial activity. Unless the product exists, it's just a thought process. It's just a concept. So the product has to exist. And if it is way ahead of its time, then have to figure out a way how to make it. At the end of the day, it has to be. When we use the word commercially viable, means what? That the larger strata of the society, 80% of the people in the society should be able to afford it. Let's put it that way. Does that answer your question, Madhupe?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you, Modupe, for your questions. And I guess this is the last one for today. So for both of you, Professor Dieter and Mr. Bergab, what are the strategies that can help new entrepreneurs manage financial survival during the early stages of a venture? This is from Ms. Prajakta.
Professor, you want to answer first? Maybe I top up later. I'm doing that even now today.
Yes.
You
So,
can answer first.
of course, the best thing for a new venture is early revenue, I think. But of course, that requires a product that has, a good a market fit. But early revenue, I think, is very crucial.
Actually,
And of course, control the cost.
yeah. No, I think this is what I think we had one slide there, right? The basics. When we say the cash flow, like the basic myths that one needs to look into. So any startups can get very can impacted negatively due to lack of funds, or I would say lack of cash. So whenever a venture goes into negative cash flow, that is the toughest thing one has to face, and any business can face it. For me personally, I'm facing that even today. It happens in certain business. It happens, right? But the thing is that we just have to be honest towards the sources of funds and our expenses. And as Professor Dieter very rightly put, and we already discussed that also during one of the slides, if our incoming cash comes through sales revenue, that's the best. So that's why I think we already had the thing on the slide. That means let's focus on the products that is sellable, that makes revenue, so that revenue is good enough to look after our existing costs. Number one. Number two, Once we reach that stage, then we can start planning for the next phase at how we grow. Then we have to build at least some contingency plan that, okay, this much we create as contingency to maintain that cash flow remains stable. Rest we put on the expansion. But when we go for expansion, we have to be absolutely clear that why we are doing it and how we assure that beyond a certain point in time, you know, like we should be able to maintain it self-sufficient. But that is the most optimal way to remain sustainable even at the beginning stage. But if the focus is more on generating finances from the external sources through soft loans and VCs making some valuation based investment in the company, well, that is there, but then we have to be honest to the cause, and then we have to be able to um, deliver as we have promised to all our investors. Otherwise, things can go downhill as well. So just to sum it up, I just repeat what Professor Dieter said and what we also discussed during the slides, that for an initial startup, it's always better to focus on revenue generation through sales and keep it higher than the costs. Does that answer your question? All right.
Okay, Moduve, last question.
Yeah, sorry, I think just one question that we missed is the regarding like product releases. What states of the market are you looking for that provide an optimal time for product release versus when to avoid releasing a product?
What was the
Question B.
I didn't get your
This one. What states of the market are you looking for that provide an optimal time for
for the
product
product releases, right? Okay. Well, I think we already actually touched base upon this, Modupe, like when we say that we have to do a proper understanding of the pulse of the market. When I use the word pulse of the market, means we have to have absolute understanding on the requirement of that particular product in the market, right? So the thing is that, but sometime if we really want the market, it depends on our own scales as well. To what extent we want to. So if we really want to taste the water first, then we can start with very small value, right? Let me put it in a very basic example. Rather than going into this fancy thing, suppose I'm not telling you to sell vegetables, but suppose you want to start a business of selling vegetables, right? So if you simply focus on the market, that in this market the potatoes are sold the best, so I will create huge amount of potatoes and take the 50% share of the potato market. But then, if your potatoes are not good, you cannot sell them well, right? So rather than that, what you can actually select that, okay, in the same plot of land, I would rather put 50 different vegetables and I will cater only to 0.5% of the market demand. And then at least your exposure is less. You can sell whatever you have produced, by and large, you can sell them all. And then you can make your judgment that, okay, how you go forward. So I just give it a hypothetical example by using potatoes and vegetables. The same goes with your product too. What product you want to release? And what is the current status of that particular product? So if you have the funds, if you have the support, if you have the technical prowess, okay, go ahead. But always be sure that whatever you deliver, whatever you product, you should be able to sell at least 60 to 70% of that, so that at least your cash flow remains positive. All right? So the product release is again depending on your product and the market demand, and also how you plan it. Because if you want to release a product and want to acquire 50% market share over first 3-4 quarters, it just might be another way of stressing yourself up a bit too much. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. And thank you, Mr. Bergab. Thank you, Professor Dieter. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Today, we learned about entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that is perfectly okay. But for those who choose this path, you should have clarity, courage, and discipline. Next session, we move into starting small micro ventures and ancestral careers, where entrepreneurship becomes practical and accessible. So be sure to join us in our next session on Wednesday here at Careers Plus Plus. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you found this content useful, please hit like and subscribe our Careers Plus Plus channel. Thank you.